I wrote this short essay on fear. And so for tonight, I want to read it to you and to share a bit of some other thoughts that I had while I was thinking about it and as I was writing it. So, on fear. One meets fear at the start of an endeavor. Before the first step is even thought of, it asks so many questions, to which answering, unknowingly, most times, takes more effort than proceeding with the task itself. Yet fear is not the opposite of love, as it may oftentimes be misconceived as, for fear comes with love and is of it. Fear brings concern and seeks certainty in the name of the beloved, which must be kept safe. The only time that fear lies may be when it tries to question the beloved's capability, but it only does so in an effort to take all possible measures to keep the beloved safe. It is misguided at best, however. There is nothing more worrisome than an endeavor fully secured. Think of a warrior going into battle with all the available armoury. On its own, it seems reasonable to go with everything that you have to keep you safe. But place that same person on a battlefield that is empty. From one end to the other, the warrior brings all the weight with him and keeps on the lookout from every direction. If they were to really try to do this, even taking a single step would be difficult. The worry would eventually compound from just keeping their self safe, from making sure their arsenals are working, and even to keeping in mind to not shoot themselves in an attempt to keep alert of their surroundings. One of the other images I had was a very important person being surrounded by a bunch of bodyguards. And yet, we've heard of a lot of people who have, as I say here in the next line, now think also of how many invincible ones have met their ultimate demise, and how a fully equipped house is the best temptation for a thief. That the more fear is assuaged with external manifestations of safety and security, the more it's uh, likely to, or the higher the likelihood of it being a calling instead for the reason for why they should be secure. The point is not to avoid preparation completely, but to see its limits and illusions. More secure than an armor is resilience. Resilience can only be acquired through exposure. Here we can see the more important point of fear. That is, it in itself is not to be feared. Fear asks so that we may be reminded of love, which is not ignorant, but fully aware, and yet takes the risk with much courage and faith. Take fierce questions and look where love hides between its lines. Those are the very gaps through which resilience can bloom. One might think, or an argument might be, that if you're saying that we shouldn't prepare for something, we shouldn't be scared of things and just go at it blindly. It's not the point. The point is that those things that are fear, those things that cause worry or concern, are legitimate to an extent. Maybe completely legitimate. If they can be addressed, then that's great. But it's not possible to address everything that fear is concerned about. And so sometimes it's worth to just seeing where things are, seeing these things that is being feared, that one is afraid of, and to dwell in the fact that there's something else other than fear that's also there. As a writer, I look at my work by every 1,000 words. Often I see it as my daily goal, the completion of just the first 1,000 words. This is plenty enough for me to take seriously and not so much that it would be too daunting as a regular objective. However, sometimes when working feels difficult, I look at it as a remedy for the difficulty. I think what I'm trying to say here is when I'm struggling to write, for example, I can feel myself struggling to write, or I can feel this lack of motivation to work. I think of that first 1,000 words as my key to getting that motivation, because if only I get to pass this obstacle, jump over this hurdle, then maybe things would be okay. Then maybe I would be able to get that momentum that I need. I would think that I need only to overcome the first 1,000 words, and then everything else would be better, easier. The rest of the words would flow more smoothly after that, or that I would get enough motivation to continue whatever it is I need to do. Yet, if one observes the physical phenomenon of writing, it would seem as though the difference between the first 1,000 words and the next 1,000 words are negligible. In theory, after the first 1,000 words, the next ones would be easier to get out. But honestly, writing one word is the same as another. I'm almost at 3,000 words now, and there's no difference between the amount of effort and energy needed for me to write the first word and this one. The action itself is the same. How I approach that first one, more or less, is how I am approaching what follows it. I've been writing so many essays and papers now, and if I were to depend on the process of writing itself to improve the experience, there would not be much of a difference. The hell of going through one article is the same as the next, just with different contents and contexts. I think it's a curious realization I had as I was writing this, that when I started my work session for that day, I thought, okay, I'll get through this certain number of essays, this certain number of words, and I just need to finish the first 1,000 words, and it's going to be easy. Just need to sit down and get it going. But I did sit down, I did get things going, and still it was hard. There's still that friction, or there was at some point ease, but it wasn't there because I've already written 1,000 words. I had felt a certain kind of ease writing the first 100 words, and then by 1,500, some sort of tension was there again, and I realized that this friction, this inertia when it comes to writing, is not because of how many words you've written or where you are in the process. Sometimes it's just there. And I think also in this part is where I was thinking that when I wrote earlier at the very start of this essay that fear meets us at the start of an endeavor. What that means is it meets us there and often comes with us along the way. So what is scary at the start may not necessarily be less scary eventually. The fear won't just disappear just because you've already been doing the thing for a month or so. It would still be there, maybe. Perhaps this phenomenon is why people continuously struggle with writing or with making art. When one approaches it with much struggle, with much pain, hoping to just get through, one would eventually find that no matter how many getting throughs there are, they would still struggle for the next one. I realize now that it's kind of palpable for me, especially when I make art. I tend to work on one piece at a time and each day. And sometimes when I haven't been painting for a while, I'll start a new painting, and it would be so painful to to start. because I wanted to look good, but I don't know. Suddenly, I forget to make it look good, and I'm worried that I'd put all the effort there, and I won't be able to get the image that I want. And yet, after going through that process, finishing one whole painting and seeing this finished work that I'm satisfied with, I would think that, okay, then I would be able to make the next one more easily now, because now I know, now I remember. And yet, strangely, I still can't make another artwork after my first one. Well, after finishing one in a day. I think at some point I was able to do so, but that was out of some other energy that, okay, I needed to finish it. I need to finish this number of paintings at this time. But if I were to just go with the regular day to day work energy, it's hard, it's difficult. And when it comes to the next day, and the first thing that I need to do is to paint something, in theory, I'd say that I'm supposed to find it easy because I just finished the painting yesterday. It wasn't as difficult as I imagined it to be. And yet I still feel some sort of struggle. There's no overcoming fear, for without fear, there would be no courage, no point in getting stronger, no way of qualifying resilience. And with fear, rejoice. Love shines brighter and is made stronger. Let us take the writing example to understand. Suppose fear comes with you as you write, and with loving hands you take it along for the ride. You do not answer its curiously anxious inquiries with reasonable attempts. Instead, you acknowledge the uncertainty and together decide if it is worth taking the first step anyway. Then you do it together, and the next, and the next. The uncertainty never leaves. Fear's questions never vanish. This is a good thing. Now both of you see them clearly, where and what they are. I think that is much better than being fully equipped in an empty battlefield, not knowing if there are adversaries in the first place. Now, when you move closer or farther from these, you can do so with love. I think our usual approach of trying to focus on problem solving, especially when it comes to things like fear, things like uncertainty, we might assume they'd work, but I don't think it's a very healthy practice in the long run, because it can't address the fact that we just simply live in a very uncertain reality. The uncertainty is inherent in the world. You can't get rid of it. And the same with fear, that or emotions similar to fear, if not fear itself. The negative, quote, negative emotions are always there. Even if it's not in you, it would be in someone else and you would witness it, you would see that. That's not the reason to give up or to try our hardest to do the impossible of getting rid of the things that make this world what it is. But it's a hopeful challenge, I'd say, at the very least, where we can see where the other better things, good, more hopeful, more comforting things can take us. Or that maybe, like I think I was trying to say here, is that we can take fear as more of a friend than someone who's trying to mess with us. At, because they're concerned, because they worry, and maybe they care. And they care because they love. And so what better way to give love back than being a company to fear, bringing it along with you, allowing it to witness these things that are uncertain but are worthwhile. And I end it with, now, what does that mean to do something with love? I think that's for another reflection. Thank you.